All right, we're here with School Board Vice Chair John Kean. How's it going, John?
I'm doing very well, John. Thank you for asking. Appreciate you guys doing this, especially on the holiday weekend.
Yeah, of course. So do you want to just share a bit? Let me start with asking you this, and then it'll lead into your introduction. So I think you said in your questionnaire that your community and colleagues are asking you to serve one additional term. So should we interpret that to mean that this will be your last term on the school board?
I think it's fair to say last year in 2020, when I won re-election, I said I anticipated serving 2 terms. That was my goal. I closed my bank account. I shut down the website, and I said, "This is it." COVID delayed many of the priorities that we set out to do. Hiring a new superintendent is a real disruption for a district. New soup needs support. We have 2 new board members from the 2022 election, and by doing the math, I saw a board that could have 5 new board members within 4 years with a new superintendent with fragile initiatives that are important to us. So, I would many of my colleagues, people that are involved in the district strongly encouraged me to consider doing this 3rd term, running for this 3rd term. And, at the end of the day, I think it's the right thing for the district. I think it's the right thing for me to feel as if I gave it everything I had, as opposed to I'm not saying I'm Willie Mays leaving too late than leaving too soon, but I wanna help the district. I wanna serve the district. I mean, it's we talk about servant leadership and community service, and I believe in that. So, yeah, as for a 4th, oh, please no. I think, it we need to cultivate new leadership in this community. We're doing a pretty good job of it. We can do better. And with the district, it's harder to find younger parents, younger individuals to step up, but it needs to become an effort for us.
Cool. So let me ask you about you just mentioned, and then also in your questionnaire, you spoke really eloquently, I thought, about the lingering effects of learning loss from across all the different grade levels after COVID. So I wanted to ask you, what are other ways that the district has had to recover from COVID other than the learning loss? Because you mentioned all the projects that are coming, that got postponed because of COVID. So what are some of the other ways the district is recovering or responding to being in this post-COVID back to class world that we're in now? Because 4 years ago we were right in the middle of it last time we talked.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, some things that people don't think about. I mean, we talk about learning loss. We talk about the emotional toll on our children. We saw that. I mean, there's no question. We saw ninth graders acting like seventh graders, sixth graders acting like fourth graders, and kindergartners not ready to start school. We saw that. We're addressing that with more supports. We don't talk about the drop in attendance. I think there's a direct correlation to our current drop in attendance throughout the state and COVID. People don't value everyday attendance at school the way they used to. And I believe we conquer that with engagement. We conquer that with exciting ways to engage children, give them a reason for showing up. Oh, I want to go because I like that teacher. I like this program. I have to finish my robotics, or I'm working on this thing in this program. We've got to get kids back in school because as a basic aid district, we're not funded on it, but our kids need to be in the classroom. And we're still seeing drops in attendance. That's COVID related. Our early education, we've got way more demand than we have capacity. And the capacity is because of employees. We cannot hire staff to work in our early education at the numbers that we need. Part of it's financial, and part of it's people making choices about what's best for them. Our transportation department is a shambles right now. We have a third of what we need. You before you couldn't even find buses, now you can't find drivers, you can't find mechanics. So our transportation is greatly impacted. We'll plan field trips or sports events and find out that day that the bus went somewhere else. So there's a lot of logistic issues that are related to COVID that are still causing significant problems. But I mean, obviously, learning loss is the one that we're most focused on. But the attendance thing, I think, can be driven to engagement, tied to engagement. That's something I think that we can actually make steps on. I think we're doing that, especially at the high school level. But at the elementary level, I think we got parents who feel that, every day is not as important as it used to be. We see that it's not. And at elementary, it's harder to drive that with just engagement, I think.
Cool. Let's open it up. Who wants to ask the next one? Sam.
Hey, John.
Hey, Sam.
So I was intrigued by what you were saying on your questionnaire about teaching more about the Holocaust and the Rwandan genocide. What other parts of history are you focused on to ensure to include in the history curriculum?
Thanks, Ed. That is a passion of mine. It's probably the one place where I've been in front of students in a classroom. I spent 2 years teaching at Chapman University, and it was a class called Holocaust and History and Film, where we taught the history of the Holocaust, taught by a history professor through the lens of film, different types of film, propaganda to documentary to narrative. And it taught me how you can make people think at different points. The example I gave was a circle. We need to put education on a circle where students find themselves at different places within the circle as the semester goes along, as opposed to being on this linear line. I am opposed to these classes that just say it's black or white, yes or no, this or that. So Holocaust and genocide studies, I think, are a great way to challenge students because they used to, at least until about 6 months ago, work in absolutes. The Holocaust was an absolute evil. We don't have to equivocate that, so we know where we're starting from. But I do think there's other types of history you can bring in. I've been a proponent of teaching local history for a long time, and we're seeing it now slowly being codified into our curriculum. We're seeing students learn, studying more. It's a little more ancient than I'd like, but students learning more about Belmar, students learning more about the community. I'd like to see us bring more speakers in, talking about engagement, talking about getting kids in there. If they know there's a speaker coming in one day or a field trip, kids are more likely to go to school. So I'd like to see more local history. And as a kid that grew up in Philadelphia, I didn't know a lot of history of Mexican history of this area, Latino history, history of California. It's not my world. What's up, Keith Coleman? It's not my world. It's not what I grew up with. So for me, learning that is fascinating. Like I've read books on Chicano studies and that movement. So I do think it's important that whatever we do with history, we give that broad, we're talking about five lenses, not two, five lenses so students can create their opinion as opposed to the sage on the stage saying, this is what you think. So hopefully that answers some of what you asked, but it's a longer conversation, I guess.
Most definitely, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, Isabel.
Yeah, hi, John. So yeah, I was interested in your questionnaire. You talked about some of the initiatives that didn't come to full fruition because of COVID, and that's why you're running. And one of them was you talked about student engagement driving educational priorities. And, that's a kind of a general statement. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. And then later, you talked about engagement-driven pathways in high school.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering what you mean by that.
Great. Thanks, Isabel. So we've got a great construction project that's about to open up next year at the San side. If you've driven down Pico, you've seen it. We're creating what are called academies. This was a initiative of Dr. Dradi's that was based on the CART model from Fresno Clovis. Basically, students will spend half their day in one area. So we've got this like project lead the way engineering. You can take an English class, a science class, and say an engineering class as part of your morning or afternoon activities. We're going to do health and sports science. We're going to do a legal studies pathway. We're doing a film and media pathway. I think for a lot of the starters, it'll be two classes put together, a film class and an English class, a math class and an engineering class. But this gives kids a little more chance to dive into what they care about.
Hmm.
I think that we do a great job of educating 80% of the kids. We really do. And we've got to make more inroads with the other 20%. We have exceptional kids on both ranges. And we've got to, if project-based learning, bringing that back to Samo High, if kids who know they want to be involved in engineering or robotics or film or art or media, this is a way to get them now and give them that experience. We get them in school. We can create internship, externship programs. I think this is a way to drive the engagement that I'm talking about. Kids have to want to go to school. Most kids go to school because it's expected of them. But the kids that don't want to go have to go because they either want to see individuals, take a certain class, play a sport, do something. You don't have to love everything you do, but you got to have a reason to go there every day.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Lynn.
Yes, hi, John. I really enjoyed reading your questionnaire. I found it very thorough and informative. And there is one statement you made that I'm just really curious about. It has to do with the student protests. And you said, I do feel that students protesting now might not have learned from the freedom riders and civil rights advocates who fought Jim Crow laws in the South. Can you elaborate on that statement, explain why you feel that way?
Sure. My daughter helped clarify this for me. I think that's in the writing as well. Where her favorite English teacher at SAMO, who now moved up to Seattle, said, anybody who wants to leave this classroom to go protest, go. If you believe in it strongly, go. But you being in this classroom is part of your job as a student, and it could affect your grade. There are repercussions to your protest, and you've got to figure out what you stand for if you're willing to stand up for that. And it made me think of that as well. I think people seeing, I believe that in the past, I don't want to, how do we say this the right way? I believe that activism in the past was far more grounded in factual evidence, stronger belief. I believe though if the people that went down to the South were willing to go to jail, were willing to face the beatings that they have, and some of these people gave the ultimate price. I think that now we see protests that are more, not to minimize them, but a little more de rigueur. This is what we're doing. We're wearing this today, and we're going to protest this today. And I think people think that we can do whatever we want. And there isn't a ramification for it. At the end of the day, if you choose to stand for something, okay, so the example would be, and again, it's hard for me. Look, my wife runs a Holocaust museum. I'm deeply involved in genocide study. I'm a Jewish man who knows people who were killed on October 7th. It's very personal to me. But when I see somebody occupying a building at a university and then bemoaning the university not bringing them food and water because they're thirsty and could dehydrate, like, if you want to protest, I encourage all forms of protest. That's part of what our Constitution is based on. Our country is formed on protest. But I think with protest comes ramifications. And if you get a lower grade in your class because you miss class, that's what happens. If you have to go on a hunger strike to prove your point, that's what happens. And I just feel we've lost. I think protesting has become more of a social activity as opposed to something that we care deeply and passionately about. I'm sure this is look, it's a hot button issue, and I don't want to give the impression I'm telling kids not to advocate. Look at what we're doing in our schools. Keith was around for these ones where our kids came and really pushed for renewable energy. And they were right. They found something that we had stopped doing because it was a little more cost effective and easier. And they pushed us and they reminded us we need to be doing this, and we changed it. We're 100% renewable now. That's in a large part because of student activism. But they knew what they were doing. They came in factually based, and they came in and they convinced us. I love to see that. I don't like seeing, the anyway, I'll leave it at that. we can talk more if you'd like.
Okay,
Thank
let's go to Luis.
Thanks, John. And sorry, John, that I'm off camera. I actually have a young little 18-month-old, so I'm starting that school life, the early stages. And that's really where my question is, as we're looking for early childhood education programs, there's such competition even within our community, but even outside the community, right? With folks who want to take advantage of the programs that we have. So that's my first question is really, what do we do to create more opportunities? How can we really enhance early childhood education? And on the back end, I think we heard yesterday around, what more partnerships can exist from the three sort of big entities: the school board, the council, and the local K-12 school board. And so I'm curious, and you mentioned project-based learning and the idea of pathways and that and that as well. So I'm curious, what can we do on the back end, right? How do we partner with the college that has all these career technical education pathways to better align interests and get students really early on to participate in those pathways so that they can hopefully find that interest that instills that disposition that they're looking for?
Great. So there's two things in there. And the second, congrats with the 18-month-old. I think 18 to 24 is the greatest time with kids. I loved it. It's so much fun. They're little people. They talk to you. They're awesome. The terrible 3.5s are coming. You brought up two questions. One, early ed. Our early ed, I think, is one of the jewels of our district. I think early education had social justice standards. Early education had our project-based learning. Early education had, proper assessment that actually helped kids for early identification, bring interventions. Our early education department is we build from there throughout our district. So we are creating the leveling in early ed. The biggest thing we're seeing in early ed, like I said, is staffing. That's mostly with after school, before school. We have adequate teachers. I don't want to make it sound like we don't have teachers. We don't have the supports that families want, that wraparound service that we don't have to offer, but we offer it because our parents want it. So our early ed is in great shape for that. For the 13, 14, for the SMC partnerships with SMC, we've been doing that through CTE. We've done a lot of work with them with CTE. Auto shop is taught by SMC teachers. We've had some of our academies will be taught by SMC professors. So we've been working with them to do that. We have, guys, I should be writing stuff down because I had another SMC partnership that I wanted to mention. It'll come to me later. And I don't even have an 18-month-old. But you're right. There are dual enrollment. We've been talking about, can we create more pathways so that kids can graduate high school with that AA degree, or at least have a year towards that AA degree? What can we do to help students accelerate that? So if you know you want to go towards something else and you can finish your AA degree while you're still in high school or make halfway progress to that, we've just got you earning it out into your career and profession earlier. So we are working with them to do those things, and there are some exciting partnerships available.
Thanks. So I'm gonna go to the Isabel. I'll come back to you in a minute since you already asked one. So let's go to Keith.
Oh,
Oh, great. Hey there, John. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Keith. Good to see you.
Good, man. Good to see you. Hey, thanks for bringing up the comment about kind of the student kind of centered push for renewables, and it's really good to see that the district is moving forward on climate literacy and looking at things related to the blue economy. So that stuff sounds exciting. And as it kind of relates to that, I know that some of the student concerns in the past have been, diversity of teachers and diversity of administrators. Can you give us kind of an update on any kind of new movement in that direction in terms of how the district is trying to find that kind of teacher and administrator
Sure.
diverse talent?
Um, I wish I had hard data to give you and say X percent, this growth. I will say this we have as our priorities when we hire, we are looking to find a staff that reflects our own diversity. I know that we just hired a new principal at SAMO, a bilingual male, Hispanic, Latino principal. It doesn't sound like a big deal. It is a big deal. We don't have enough male Latino role models in our schools. So hopefully this principal will do a good job supporting us. We have. I'm trying to think of our newest hires. If you look at SAMO now, you will definitely in our admin, you're seeing more diversity. Our principals, our admin are showing that kind of diversity, which is a great start. The district office reflects that. Our teaching staff does need to grow. And again, it's harder to do that because, as you know, once you're a tenured teacher, you're a tenured teacher. And it's until you retire, we replace that position or find somebody new. Now we've got to find somebody that fits that criteria. And to be completely honest, while we are a compelling school district with great initiatives, great programs, we're building on the facilities. They're not great facilities yet, but we're getting better. If you are an idealistic young teacher and you want to make your biggest impact, are you going to come to Santa Monica, or are you going to go into Palmdale, into downtown, into Inglewood? Where are you going to go? So this is where the finances come in. We just did another wage increase for all of our employees. That'll help. We're getting more serious about a workforce initiative. I can't get to workforce housing initiative to support both our community potentially. Again, I'm way in front of myself, whether it's with the community and our own workforce at the district. Anything we can do to attract these teachers, we have to do. But admin is easier. Teachers are harder. And we have to keep working at it. And we talk about it all the time.
Right.
It's just hard to get those rock stars. I mean, one example, like Sarah Rodriguez, who who teaches English at SAMO. Without Sarah leading the English department, we wouldn't have had our 9th and 10th grade English classes change the way they did. But the other partner with Sarah is Nathan Fulcher.
Right.
I mean, so it's like we have it. We have teachers that are committed to the mission, even if when you look at a snapshot of them, they look like me. So we're still working at it.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
Hey, John. So 2 years ago, the voters of Santa Monica passed Measure GS to give money to the schools and for affordable housing. The efforts to defeat it at the polls failed, and there was an effort to defeat it in court that failed. And so now we have Cypress Equity and Madison Capital funding an effort to try and put a measure on to exempt all multifamily housing, new and existing, so that, for example, the Shores, Douglas Emmett could sell that without contributing anything to our schools and to our affordable housing. So what is your position on that measure? And if it does make it to the ballot, what will you do to try and get the voters of Santa Monica to adopt your position on it?
So this is the question that I answered at SMER. Some of you were there. I'll give the same answer. First off, the answer is if a threat to GS is put on the ballot, I can guarantee you that it will have 100% of my support to defeat that challenge. We are talking about a threat to the district's bottom line if this were to be defeated. The issue comes up is when should the school district get involved? Should the school district get involved before it's placed on the ballot or after it's placed on the ballot? And that's something that, unfortunately, I can only talk with 2 colleagues about it due to something we might potentially vote on. My personal feeling is I can see why it is an existential threat if it gets onto the ballot. I also see that I'm concerned about looking like the district is telling people what they can and cannot put on a ballot and can and cannot vote for. Much like district elections. I'm opposed to district elections. I'm not scared to put it on the ballot. I'll go defeat it once it gets onto the ballot. So if a threat to GS is on the ballot, the community will have 100% support from the district fighting it every step of the way. And I guarantee you that the groups that work with us will join us in that effort.
All right, Isabel.
Yeah, so John, in your questionnaire, you really emphasize the fiscal health of the district as being your top priority. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that. So how does your experience with the budget, how will it be helpful going forward? And what do you think is the top fiscal challenge of the district, and how would you address it?
Thank you for asking that, because nobody ever wants to talk about the budget. And to me, it is the single most important job of a board member. That's our job, governance. Governance stems from the budget, to me. We do not have a reserves policy yet. We tend to build up reserves. We have guidance. We don't have a policy yet. We need a proper reserves policy. We are a basic aid district now, which means that our money comes solely from our property taxes. Yet we're still running the district as if it were a state aid / basic aid district, where it's fueled by one-time monies. One-time monies are the lifeblood of a state aid district, but for basic aid district, reserves are the lifeblood. We have to be prepared for when we dip in and deal with those ups and downs of our property taxes. So that's 1, reserve policy. 2, we need program analysis. In some cases, we have 20, 25 different programs at a school site, larger school site, high school, 20, 25 programs to address the same issue. How about 10? How about we do program analysis? Now, I'm not saying program analysis like RAND comes in or UCLA comes in. That's impossible at a school district like ours. But Dr. Shelton is working at that. We need to reduce the number of items we have for any one thing, find the ones that work and feed them. initiatives take time. Initiatives take 3 to 5 years to see if they're going to work. So we've got to put them in place, feed them, let them grow. At the same time, we can't do everything. So to me, we're over programmed in a lot of places, and we need to winnow that down a little bit. Lastly, we've got to keep providing raises. We're not there yet, but we can't provide. You can't take care of raises with one-time funds. And that's the disconnect from a state aid to a basic aid. The
Yeah.
state aid idea is we do it all with one time and then eventually we balance out. District basic aid, we've got to live within our means and have strong reserves. So to me, it's that. The budget tells a story. The budget is our priority. And if we don't take care of that, I just feel that I wish we had a little more. I wish we had a little more financial expertise on the board. I really do, because you're placing a lot of trust in staff and recommendations that we have. If people can't read a budget, if people can't read a P&L, people can't read some of these things that come in and understand what they mean. Like, I can't believe that I am fighting for a reserves policy and I couldn't get 4 votes for it. I'm stunned by that because it's just good business. We have to do it. It's protecting our district. When we have healthy reserves, we can give raises. We can step in where needed. Without reserves, we're living on the brink. So to me, I feel like I am the one who always seems to be, I'm not Chicken Little, but we have to be realistic with what we have and live in our means, especially as a basic aid district where we're going to see 4 or 5% growth annually. That's all we're going to get. When the other districts get a 10% COLA, we get our 4 or 5%. And like Michael Soloff brought up, thank God for the local revenues. Our local revenues are astronomical compared to what we are the envy of California. So we got to use it well. And that also means sharing with the public a little more where the money's going, making it clear for the public to understand our budget because it's so Byzantine. I mean, if you look at our school budget, it's like that thick. It makes no sense. But we can crystallize that down to 1 or 2 pager that humans can understand.
Great. Well,
Thanks.
thanks, John. I think that's all the time we have today, but glad to have you here, and always good to have another John who spells their name the right way in a public office.
And you got to throw a little go Eagles in. I'm looking if I have any Philly stuff behind me. I
That's
don't.
true.
I have
Yeah.
Eagles things.
Good call. Good call. Okay.
Hey,
Thanks.
thank you all so much for what you do. I appreciate you.
Thanks, John. Have a good day.
Be well. Bye.
Thank you so much.